And a new study claims that more than half of all cosmetics in the U.S. and Canada have chemicals that could lead to serious health issues like cancer and reduced birth weight.
7 mascara brands sitting in your makeup bag right now have been named in active lawsuits and federal PFAS testing that directly contradicts what the label promises. This is not a guess. This is the FDA's own report, a class action still moving through federal court, and lab results finding parabens in bottles marked formulated without parabens. We are naming every single one today. Then, we are showing you 3 brands that actually hold up under that same testing. Full length, full volume. None of the chemistry sitting on your lash line every day. Stay to the end, because 3 of these 7 brands share the same parent company. Avoid brand 1. L'Oreal Paris. A gold tube sits in the makeup bag next to the good perfume, because Voluminous is the one mascara that survived every purge, every switch, every trip through a new routine. It has been there since high school, through the drugstore years, and past the point where the budget could stretch to something fancier. People trusted L'Oreal because the name feels like the adult version of makeup, the brand your mother wore, the one sitting at eye level in every drugstore aisle in the country. Voluminous specifically built its reputation on the promise of false lash volume without falsies, a claim that made it feel like a small daily luxury rather than a $10 tube. Here is the reveal. L'Oreal is named directly in an ongoing class action alleging its waterproof mascaras, including Voluminous and Voluminous Lash Paradise Waterproof, contain undisclosed PFAS, the forever chemicals linked to hormone disruption and several types of cancer. The complaint centers on labels stating the products are ophthalmologist and allergy tested and suitable for sensitive eyes, while never disclosing the PFAS present in the formula. This is not the brand's first time in this exact position either. A 2008 California lawsuit already targeted L'Oreal and its Maybelline subsidiary over formaldehyde gas in lash mascara, meaning this is now 2 separate decades, 2 separate chemical classes, and the same brand named both times. Looks buildable, reads litigated, a tube built on the promise of lash volume, sitting inside an active PFAS lawsuit right now. Read the label claim against the lawsuit claims side by side. Ophthalmologist and allergy tested is the promise on the box. Undisclosed PFAS is the allegation in the complaint. Both cannot be fully true at the same time. For the woman who thought a trusted drugstore name meant a formula without hidden chemistry, this is what you actually bought. A label making a safety promise that a federal complaint says the company never had the ingredient transparency to back up. The carve-out. L'Oreal's non-waterproof voluminous formulas are not named in the current PFAS complaint, since PFAS is typically added for water resistance rather than standard wear. If you are buying this brand at all, the standard formula carries less of the specific chemical class under active litigation than the waterproof version does. Trusted name. 2 lawsuits, 2 decades apart. Up next, a brand named in the exact same PFAS complaint, sitting right next to L'Oreal on the same drugstore shelf, selling the exact same waterproof promise under a different logo. Avoid brand 2. Maybelline. The green and pink tube sits in the bottom of a purse, worn down at the cap, the one mascara that never gets replaced because it has always just been there. Great Lash has been a fixture in American makeup bags since before most people watching this were born, the mascara everyone's older sister owned first. People trusted Maybelline because it built its entire identity around being the accessible, universally recognized name in mascara, the brand that made bold lashes feel like a birthright rather than a luxury. Great Lash specifically earned a kind of nostalgic loyalty that outlasted every ingredient trend and every new launch around it. Here is the reveal. Maybelline is named in the same amended PFAS class action as L'Oreal, its parent company, covering 4 separate waterproof products including Great Lash Waterproof, Volume Express the Falsies Waterproof, and Total Temptation Waterproof. Separately, the classic Great Lash formula has been independently confirmed to contain triethanolamine, propylene glycol, and parabens, ingredients tied to organ toxicity and hormone disruption in more than one independent ingredient review. 2 different concerns, 2 different testing sources, 1 green and pink tube sitting at the center of both. Looks nostalgic, reads chemically stacked, a childhood classic carrying both a named PFAS lawsuit and a confirmed paraben and propylene glycol formula. Read the first 3 ingredients doing the real work in the classic formula: triethanolamine to balance pH, propylene glycol as a penetration enhancer, parabens to preserve shelf life. None of the nostalgia sitting on the outside of the tube shows up in that list. For the woman who thought the childhood classic meant the safest possible choice, this is what you actually bought. A formula flagged by independent reviewers and a waterproof line named in active federal litigation, both under the exact same brand loyalty that made switching feel unnecessary. The carve-out. Maybelline's non-waterproof formulas fall outside the current PFAS complaint, the same way L'Oreal's do, since the two brands share a parent company and a waterproofing supply chain. It is the lesser exposure, not the clean one. Same green tube, same trusted shelf spot. Two separate flagged chemical classes. Up next, a brand that has been sued twice over the exact same hidden chemical, once by a nonprofit and once in federal court, while still marketing itself as sustainable. Avoid brand 3, CoverGirl. A blue and green tube sits on the bathroom counter next to a stack of college textbooks because CoverGirl was the first grown-up mascara most people ever bought with their own money. Lash Blast promised drama without the department store price tag, and for a lot of women, that tube was the actual starting point of wearing makeup at all. People trusted CoverGirl because it built its entire brand around accessibility. The idea that a college student or a first-time makeup wearer deserved the same lash impact as anyone shopping at a beauty counter. The brand leaned hard into a wholesome, all-American image for decades. Cheerful packaging, recognizable spokeswomen, the opposite of anything that felt clinical or chemical. Here is the reveal. CoverGirl has been sued twice over the same underlying issue. A 2021 complaint filed by the nonprofit Toxin Free USA alleged the company misrepresented its products as sustainable, while PFAS indicators showed up in independent lab testing. A separate federal class action specifically targeting CoverGirl mascara made the same core allegation, that the company failed to disclose PFAS despite marketing its products as safe and high quality. The federal case was dismissed without prejudice for lacking enough specific detail, which means the underlying PFAS presence was never actually disputed, only the legal filing itself. Independent ingredient review also confirms talc and multiple parabens across the CoverGirl mascara lineup. Looks wholesome. Reads litigated twice over. A drugstore staple facing two separate PFAS allegations from two separate directions in under 2 years. Read the sustainability claim against the lab result. CoverGirl's own reporting language described itself as championing open, inclusive, and sustainable beauty. Independent lab testing, commissioned separately from that reporting, found detectable PFAS indicators in its products regardless. For the first-time makeup buyer who thought an affordable, wholesome brand meant a safer formula, this is what you actually bought. A company facing two separate PFAS allegations, while its own marketing language promised the opposite of what independent testing found. The carve-out. CoverGirl's talc-free formulas, clearly labeled as such on the product page, remove one specific flagged ingredient class, even though the PFAS allegations remain unresolved industry-wide. It narrows the exposure. It does not eliminate it. Wholesome packaging. 2 lawsuits. Same underlying chemical. Up next, a brand owned by the exact same parent company, carrying a mascara formula independently confirmed to stack 5 separate ingredients of concern in one tube. Avoid brand 4, Max Factor. A sleek black and gold tube sits in a professional makeup kit because Max Factor built its reputation on a Hollywood pedigree. The brand literally named after the man credited with inventing modern film makeup. That history still does a lot of quiet marketing work on the shelf today. People trusted Max Factor because the name itself implies expertise, decades of makeup artistry behind every product. A brand built by and for people who supposedly know formulas better than anyone else in the industry. That pedigree made the ingredient list feel like something you didn't need to double-check. Here is the reveal. Independent ingredient review of Max Factor's mascara lineup confirms a formula stacking propylene glycol, triethanolamine, polyethylene, benzyl alcohol, denatured alcohol, parabens, sodium lauryl sulfate, and phenoxyethanol, 8 separately flagged ingredients in one product category. That is not one questionable ingredient sitting quietly in an otherwise clean formula. That is nearly every ingredient class named across every other brand on this list, stacked together under a single legacy name. Looks expert crafted. Reads like a checklist of nearly every flagged ingredient on this entire list. A Hollywood pedigree formula, built on the same chemistry as the drugstore brands sitting one shelf below it. Read the ingredient stack directly. Propylene glycol as a penetration enhancer. Trithanolamine to balance pH. Parabens and phenoxyethanol as preservatives. Sodium lauryl sulfate as a surfactant. 5 separate functions. 5 separate flagged chemicals. 1 small tube. For the makeup artist or the professional kit owner who thought a legacy name meant a more considered formula, this is what you actually bought. A stacked ingredient list carrying nearly every flagged chemical class named across this entire video, wearing the most credentialed name in the lineup. The carve-out. Max Factor does not currently sell a reformulated clean line the way some competitors do, so there is no genuinely safer subline within the brand to point to here. This is the rare entry where the honest carve-out is that none exists yet. Legacy name, legacy formula, no updated version in sight. Up next, a brand whose name literally borrows medical credibility, where only one specific line in the entire lineup actually earns the trust the name implies. Avoid Brand 5. Physicians. Formula A soft pink box sits on the drugstore shelf with a name that sounds like it was recommended by an actual doctor, sitting next to products with names like Organic Wear and Gentle Glow, the kind of packaging that makes you feel like you made the responsible choice before you even opened the box. People trusted Physicians' formula because the name itself does the convincing. Nobody names a company after doctors by accident. The brand has spent decades positioning itself as the sensitive skin option, the one dermatologists would supposedly approve of, the safer alternative sitting one shelf over from the brands with flashier packaging and no medical implication at all. Here is the reveal. Physicians, Formula's Organic Wear. Natural Origin Mascara genuinely earns its reputation, independently reviewed as free of harsh alcohols, common allergens, parabens, and silicones. But that is one specific line inside a much larger catalog. Independent ingredient review of the brand's broader, non-organic mascara lineup found propylene glycol, triethanolamine, phenoxyethanol, parabens, and diazolidinyl urea, a formaldehyde-releasing preservative, stacked across the majority of its other mascara formulas. The brand's own safety ratings, when reviewed line by line, range from a 2 up to an 8 out of 10, depending on which specific mascara you pick off the same shelf, under the exact same trusted name. Looks medically endorsed. Reads inconsistent by design. A name that borrows credibility from doctors, sitting on some formulas that earn it, and several that quietly do not. Read the range directly. The safest Physicians. Formula Mascara scores close to a 2 out of 10 in independent review. Several others in the same lineup, sold under the same name, on the same shelf, score as high as an 8. That is not one bad batch. That is one brand running 2 entirely different formulation standards under one trusted label. For the sensitive-eyed shopper who thought the word Physicians on the box meant every product inside met the same standard, this is what you actually bought. A single, genuinely clean line doing the reputational work for an entire catalog of formulas that do not meet the same bar. The carve-out. The Organic Wear. Natural Origin Mascara specifically is the real deal, hypoallergenic, fragrance-free, and independently confirmed clean. If you are buying this brand, read the specific product name on the box, not just the company name above it, because those two things are telling you very different stories here. One trustworthy line, a whole catalog riding on its reputation. Up next, a brand where a single mascara formula was independently found to stack 4 separate parabens in one tube, owned by the same parent company as 2 other brands already on this list. Avoid Brand 6. Rimmel. A red and gold tube with a London skyline printed on the label sits in a makeup bag that also holds a passport stamp or two, because Rimmel built its entire identity around a certain cool, effortless, London girl aesthetic that made the drugstore price tag feel like a stylistic choice rather than a budget one. People trusted Rimmel because the brand marketed itself as edgy and independent, a British import with its own point of view, distinct from the more clinical mainstream American drugstore names sitting nearby. That perceived independence made ingredient scrutiny feel unnecessary, since the brand's whole appeal was built on personality rather than pharmacy credibility. Here is the reveal. Independent ingredient analysis of Rimmel's Lash Accelerator Mascara found 4 separate parabens stacked in one formula: butylparaben, ethylparaben, methylparaben, and propylparaben, alongside triethanolamine, propylene glycol, phenoxyethanol, and titanium dioxide. That is 4 members of the same flagged preservative family sitting in a single tube, not one paraben doing the preserving job alone, but 4 different variants layered together. Rimmel is also the 3rd brand on this list, alongside CoverGirl and Max Factor, owned by the exact same parent company, Coty. Looks independent, reads like it shares a formulation floor with 2 other brands already named tonight. A London-branded tube built on the same underlying paraben stack, running through its own corporate siblings. Read the paraben count specifically. 4 separate parabens in one product is not a trace amount of one preservative. It is a layered redundancy system, each variant doing a slightly different job, all 4 from the same flagged ingredient family. Independent reviewers have linked to hormone disruption. For the shopper who thought a distinct, independent-seeming brand meant a distinct formula, this is what you actually bought. The 3rd product from the same parent company on this list, carrying its own version of the same preservative stacking pattern. The carve-out. Rimmel's Kind and Free line specifically markets itself as a cleaner formula, and independent review confirms fewer flagged preservatives than the Lash Accelerator line carries. It is a real step down in exposure, not a full clean formula, but a meaningfully better choice within the same brand. Same parent company. 3rd brand. Same underlying pattern. Up next, a brand whose own packaging says formulated without parabens, while independent lab review found parabens in the formula anyway. Avoid brand 7, Neutrogena. An orange and white tube sits next to a bottle of the brand's own facial sunscreen in the medicine cabinet, because Neutrogena has spent decades building the single most trusted dermatologist-adjacent reputation in the entire drugstore. The brand doctors themselves reportedly recommend more than any other. People trusted Neutrogena because the brand's entire identity is built on clinical credibility. The idea that if a dermatologist trusts this company with your face, you can trust it with your lash line too. Healthy definition. Mascara specifically leaned into that halo, positioning itself as the safe, considered choice for anyone who reads labels carefully. Here is the reveal. Neutrogena's own product page states, Healthy Definition Mascara is formulated without parabens, mineral oils, and dyes. Independent review from Gimme the Good Stuff, an ingredient safety guide, gave Neutrogena's healthy line of mascaras an EWG hazard score of 6 out of 10 and specifically flagged the presence of parabens and undisclosed fragrance in the formula, directly contradicting the paraben-free claim printed on the box. One source is the brand's own marketing copy. The other is an independent ingredient reviewer looking at the same formula. They do not agree. Looks clinically endorsed, reads directly contradicted. A box that says formulated without parabens, reviewed by an independent source that says parabens are present anyway. Read the 2 claims side by side. Formulated without parabens is the printed promise. An EWG hazard score of 6, with parabens specifically named, is the independent finding. Only one of those 2 statements can be accurate, and it is not the one printed on the tube. For the dermatologist-trusting shopper, who thought the clinical reputation meant the label could be taken at face value, this is what you actually bought. A printed claim that an independent ingredient reviewer says does not hold up against the formula itself. The carve-out. Neutrogena does not currently offer a separately verified paraben-free mascara line to point to instead, since the contradiction sits inside the flagship Healthy line itself. This is another entry where the honest answer is that the safer alternative sits outside the brand entirely. Trusted name, printed promise, contradicted by the label reviewer. That closes out all 7. 3 of them under one parent company. 2 of them contradicting their own packaging. All 7 sitting on the exact same drugstore shelf you have been shopping from for years. Okay, stop for a second. You just sat through 7 brands, and 3 of them, CoverGirl, Max Factor, and Rimmel, are owned by the exact same parent company, Coty. One founder builds a brand on trust. A conglomerate buys it. The marketing claims stay exactly where they were. The formulation budget quietly drops. Accountability walks out the door somewhere in between the acquisition paperwork and the next product launch. 2 other names on this list, Physicians Formula and Neutrogena, borrow medical credibility through their branding, while independent testing contradicts the exact claim printed on the box. That is not 7 separate stories. That is one story, told 7 times, wearing 7 different logos. Worth it, pick one. Ilia. Where others sell a legacy name and a stacked ingredient list, Ilia sells a formula built from the ground up around what actually goes on your lash line, not what a decades-old brand name implies about it. The brand was founded by Sasha Plavsic, who left a career in fashion after growing frustrated with an industry that treated performance and clean formulation as mutually exclusive choices rather than a single achievable standard. That frustration became the entire premise behind the brand. Makeup that performs at a prestige level without hiding behind vague, unverified safety language. Here is the proof. Limitless Lash Mascara appears repeatedly across independent clean beauty roundups as a standout, transparent formula, and it has become one of the most consistently recommended clean mascaras among ingredient reviewers who specifically call out brands for empty green marketing. That kind of repeated, independent recommendation carries more weight than a single brand's own packaging claim. The formula skips parabens, phthalates, and the formaldehyde-releasing preservatives found stacked across several of the Avoid brands, while still delivering the kind of buildable volume and length that made those 7 other tubes popular in the first place. The honest limitation: Ilia costs more than a drugstore tube, and it is not sold at every mass retailer, so it asks for a bit more effort and a bit more budget than grabbing whatever sits at checkout. It is also a lighter, more natural volume than some of the most dramatic false lash effect formulas on the market. So, if your goal is maximum theatrical volume, this may not be the single most dramatic option available. Price and availability: around $26, sold at Sephora, and directly through the brand's own website. For anyone who sat through the physician's formula entry and felt betrayed by a brand name that only sometimes lived up to its own reputation, this is what an actually consistent standard looks like across an entire product line, rather than one single item hiding inside a larger catalog. Up next, a brand that came back with a non-detect result in independent lab testing, built specifically to catch the exact chemical class that got 3 brands on this list named in a federal lawsuit. Worth it? Pick 2. 100% pure. Where others sell an ophthalmologist-tested claim without disclosing what sits underneath it, 100% Pure sells a formula that was independently lab-tested for the specific chemical class currently under litigation and came back clean. The brand built its identity around fruit-pigmented color using ingredients like pomegranate and other plant-based pigments in place of synthetic dyes, a formulation choice made well before clean beauty became a marketing trend rather than an actual standard. Here is the proof. Mamavation, a consumer research group, commissioned independent lab testing on 83 green beauty products in 2021, sending them to an EPA-certified lab specifically to check for organic fluorine, the indicator used to detect PFAS. 65% of tested products came back with detectable levels. 100% Pure's fruit pigmented mascara was one of only 6 products out of 49 brands tested that came back non-detect. That is not a marketing claim. That is a third-party lab result, the exact test that would have caught the chemical class named in the L'Oreal, Maybelline, and CoverGirl lawsuits. The formula relies on fruit pigments and plant-derived waxes rather than the standard oxidative and waterproofing chemistry running through most of the Avoid list, which is precisely why it tested clean. For the chemical class those other formulas rely on for water resistance. The honest limitation: fruit pigmented formulas tend to be less waterproof and less smudge-resistant than synthetic waterproof mascaras, since that resistance is often exactly what introduces PFAS into a formula in the first place. If you need an all-day swim-proof formula, this may fade faster than you want. Price and availability: around $20, sold directly through the brand's website and at select natural beauty retailers. Up next, a brand built specifically for sensitive eyes that skips the paraben and formaldehyde releasing pattern running through nearly every drugstore name on this list. Worth it? Pick 3. Well People. Where others print a sensitive eyes claim on the box, while independent review finds the opposite underneath, Well People builds its expressionist mascara around an ingredient deck designed from the start to avoid the exact preservative pattern flagged across this entire video. The brand was founded on the idea that clean formulation and everyday drugstore accessibility did not have to be opposing goals, building a lineup meant to sit at a similar price point to mass brands while holding a meaningfully different ingredient standard. Here is the proof. Well, People's mascaras consistently appear on independent, non-toxic, and clean. beauty ingredient guides specifically because they skip the paraben and formaldehyde releasing preservative combination found stacked in the Rimmel, Neutrogena, and Max Factor entries above. That consistent, repeated inclusion across multiple independent reviewers rather than a single company-issued claim is the actual verification here. The formula is built without parabens, phthalates, or formaldehyde-releasing preservatives, while still delivering the volumizing performance that keeps people reaching for a mass-market tube instead of a prestige one. The honest limitation. Well, People has a smaller color and finish range than a brand like Rimmel or CoverGirl, so if you are looking for a highly specific tinted or colored mascara line, the selection here is more limited than what a full drugstore shelf offers. Price and availability. Around $14, sold at Target, and through the brand's own website, priced closer to the avoid list than to a prestige counter. That is 3 formulas, 3 different price points from prestige to drugstore. None of them asking you to choose between real performance and a formula that actually matches what the label claims. You just sat through 10 brands, 7 built on the same underlying pattern, 3 of them literally owned by the same parent company, 2 of them borrowing medical credibility. Their independent test results did not back up. L'Oreal and Maybelline named in the same active PFAS lawsuit. CoverGirl sued twice over the same chemical. Rimmel stacking 4 separate parabens in 1 tube. Neutrogena's own box claiming paraben-free, while an independent reviewer found the opposite. It is not a mistake, it is the model. Here is what you do tomorrow morning. Walk into your bathroom, pick up whatever mascara is sitting closest to the sink, and check if it says waterproof. Anywhere on the label, if it does, that is your starting point for looking up exactly what makes it water resistant. Tell me which of these 7 brands you have been buying the longest, not the one that surprised you, the one you reached for without thinking for years. If someone you know is still buying whatever waterproof mascara sits in that federal PFAS complaint, send them this video before their next tube. The system is not broken. It is working exactly the way it was built to work. You were never supposed to notice that 3 of these boxes come from the same parent company. Stay sharp. Read those labels. Keep rising.